All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive deep into one of the most common and maybe most misunderstood substances on the planet, alcohol. We're going to unpack the science of what it really does to your brain and your body using a pretty detailed scientific analysis as our roadmap.
So let's just start with a big question right out of the gate. Is having a drink or two a day no big deal? I mean, it's a question a lot of us have, and honestly, for years, the advice has been kind of all over the map. But, recent, huge studies are giving us an answer that is surprisingly clear and maybe a little sobering.
Yep, you heard that right. We're talking about a massive study, over 35,000 adults, and it showed that even what we'd call light to moderate drinking, just 1 or 2 drinks a day, was linked to a loss of brain matter, both gray and white matter. That's a huge piece of data, and it really sets the stage for everything we're about to talk about. So to really get why this happens, we have to start at square one.
So what is it about alcohol, or ethanol, that lets it mess with our whole system so effectively? Well, it's got this kind of chemical superpower. It's both water-soluble and fat-soluble. And what that means is it can basically just waltz right through the membrane of every single cell in your body. That's why its effects are so widespread. We're talking brain, liver, gut, you name it.
And here's the absolute key thing to understand. While ethanol is the kind of alcohol we can drink, our bodies do not treat it like food. Not at all. The moment it enters your system, your body basically hits the panic button and sees it for what it is, a poison. It immediately launches this all-hands-on-deck emergency response to break it down and get it.
And this is where things get really nasty. The very first thing your body turns that ethanol into is this molecule, acetaldehyde. And if you thought ethanol was bad, acetaldehyde is way, way worse. It's a straight-up cell-destroying poison that damages your DNA and just kills cells wherever it finds them.
So this is the whole process right here, in 3 steps. You drink the ethanol, your liver turns it into that super toxic acetaldehyde. Then, your liver has to work like crazy to turn that into something called acetate, which, your body can use for a little bit of energy. So that feeling of being drunk or tipsy, that's not some fun little buzz. That's literally the feeling of poison disrupting the circuits in your brain.
Okay, so let's follow these molecules up into the command center, the brain. Because they cross the blood-brain barrier with zero effort, they immediately start to systematically shut down specific parts of your brain, starting with the most sophisticated, human part.
The very first thing alcohol does is quiet down your prefrontal cortex. Think of this as the CEO of your brain. It's in charge of planning, making good decisions, and controlling your impulses. Alcohol basically tells the CEO to go take a long lunch break. It's like taking the brakes off your personality. This is exactly why the volume in a room goes up after a round of drinks, why people start talking over each other, and why that little voice that says, hey, maybe don't say that out loud, gets really, really quiet.
Now, this is fascinating. Not everyone's brain has the same reaction. For most people who only drink occasionally, you might feel good for a little bit, but then you pretty quickly start to feel tired, sedated, a little clumsy. But for someone who drinks a lot or has a genetic predisposition to alcoholism, it's the total opposite. The alcohol actually makes them feel more energized, more alert for a much longer time. This reaction, this prolonged up feeling, is a major biological red flag.
And let's be clear, this isn't just about what happens while you're drinking. When you drink regularly, and we're talking even just a couple times a week, you start to physically rewire your brain. The pathways for being impulsive and acting on habit get stronger, like a well-used trail in the woods. And the pathways for thoughtful, deliberate action, they start to get weaker, overgrown. Your brain's default setting literally begins to shift toward impulse, even when you're completely sober.
Okay, so we've covered the brain. But the chaos doesn't stop there. Alcohol also kicks off this powerful stress reaction, a hidden chemical cascade that creates ripple effects through your whole body. And it creates a cycle that can be incredibly hard to break. You know how people often have a drink to de-stress? Well, here's the cruel irony. In the moment, sure, it might feel relaxing, but over time, it does the exact opposite. It messes with your body's central stress response system. What that means is, when you're not drinking, your baseline level of cortisol, the main stress hormone, is actually higher. So you end up feeling more stressed and more anxious in your everyday life, which of course makes you want to reach for a drink to calm down the very anxiety the alcohol caused in the first place.
And it gets worse. Alcohol is absolutely brutal for your gut, just wiping out the good bacteria. This causes inflammation and something called leaky gut. Meanwhile, your liver, which is already working overtime, starts sending out these inflammatory alarm signals. And here's the really vicious part of the cycle.
Those signals travel up to your brain and mess with the exact circuits that are supposed to regulate your desire to drink, which, you guessed it, makes you crave more alcohol.
So you add all of this up, the brain disruption, the stress cycle, the inflammation. What's the cumulative damage look like over the long haul? Well, the data paints a very, very clear picture of some serious health risks.
Yeah, let's just circle right back to where we started. This quote really says it all. The science is undeniable now that drinking alcohol, even at levels most of us would call moderate, is directly linked to a loss of brain tissue, a thinning of the neocortex, the part of our brain responsible for all our complex thoughts.
And then there's the cancer risk. This is a big one. Remember that toxic molecule acetaldehyde? Well, because it can damage your DNA, it significantly bumps up the risk for a bunch of cancers. The data on breast cancer is especially jarring, showing a really significant jump in risk for every 10 grams of alcohol you consume a day.
And you might be thinking, okay, what exactly is 10 grams of alcohol? It sounds like a lot, right? It's not. It's basically one standard drink. A normal 12-ounce beer, a 6-ounce glass of wine, a single shot of liquor. That's it. So that one drink-a-day habit falls squarely into this increased risk zone.
All right, let's talk about the day after, the dreaded hangover. It feels like this one single horrible cloud of misery, right? But from a scientific point of view, it's actually your body experiencing multiple system failures all at the same time. It's a full-on revolt.
So why do you feel so awful? It's basically this four-pronged attack. First, the sleep you get isn't real sleep. It's fragmented. It's not restorative. It's pseudo-sleep. Second, your gut is in total chaos from all that inflammation. Third, you're obviously dehydrated and you've lost key electrolytes. And finally, that pounding headache? That's your blood vessels actually constricting as a rebound effect once the alcohol wears off.
And you've probably noticed this yourself, right? Not all hangovers are created equal. The difference often comes down to these things called congeners. They're just byproducts from fermentation. The darker the drink, think brandy, red wine, whiskey, the more congeners they have. And those things are especially rough on your gut, which leads to a much, much worse hangover than you'd get from something clearer, like vodka.
So is there a magic cure? I wish. The science is pretty straightforward on this. The only guaranteed way to avoid a hangover is, well, not to drink. But if you do, the second best thing is to go on the offensive. Hydrate like crazy with electrolytes and do what you can to support your poor gut.
So look, after all this, what's the bottom line? The whole point of breaking this science down isn't to tell anyone what to do. It's just to lay out the facts as clearly as we can. We've seen that alcohol is, from a biological standpoint, a poison that kicks off a whole cascade of negative effects in our bodies and our brains. And now, armed with that knowledge, you're in the best possible position to make a truly informed choice for yourself.